Okay, everybody, so yesterday we read through the War of the Worlds extract and I picked out some words that I thought you might be a little uncertain of. It is quite an old-fashioned text, so there could be words in there that you didn't know the meaning of. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is go through the words we picked out, and then we'll have a quick look at the questions. So I talked about crater being a hole in the ground. Woking was the place that the spacecraft had landed in or near, and Martians is another word for aliens. So on to the second paragraph. It's probably best to look at the sentence that the word is in, and then I'll explain what the word means. So it says, a kind of fascination paralysed my actions. So the clue there is my actions, meaning that they are what they were doing. So if they were paralysed, it means that they were kind of frozen, they weren't moving, so it stopped them from doing what they would have done or what they were planning to do. So you could be paralysed in fear, so you're kind of frozen in fear, but this one is more frozen with curiosity, frozen with questions, and that clue is the word fascination. Next word, I remain standing knee deep in the heather. Heather is a type of plant. It usually has purple, pink, or white flowers, and you'd usually find it on mountains. Okay, so heather is a type of plant that is up to the person's knees in the story. On to the next paragraph. I began walking therefore in a big curve, seeking some point of vantage. So a vantage point is an area where you can see more clearly or see something better. So if you're seeking a point of vantage, it's a higher up area that you'd be able to see something better. Next one. This word was today's word of the day, apex. So hopefully you found the meaning of that, which means at the top of something. So bearing at its apex a circular disc that spun with a wobbling motion. So basically the things that have come out of the spacecraft have long arms like tentacles that an octopus would have, and they have got a circular disc with a light, I think it's a light on it, that is kind of wobbling from side to side. On to the next paragraph. We'll read the full sentence here because there's two words within this sentence. One man I approached, he was, I perceived, a neighbour of mine, though I did not know his name, and accosted. So, one man I approached, went near to, and he was, I perceived. To perceive something is to think or assume it. So, I think was a neighbour of mine, is basically what it's saying. And to accost somebody is to approach them and speak to them. Usually if you accost somebody, you're speaking to them quite rudely or abruptly. So he might be speaking to that person in not a very polite way because he was so shocked and surprised about what's happening. And then the last bit, that kind of follows up with the reason why he accosted them. It said, but it was scarcely a time for articulate conversation. Articulate means to have a detailed conversation, or a kind of polite conversation with somebody. So they're saying, I was quite rude to them, but it wasn't the time to kind of be nice and say, oh, hello, how are you? My name is, what's your name? And so on. So they were quite abrupt with them, basically because they were in such shock and panic. We've talked about the word brutes, that we should know what that means from the word of the day on Thursday. And then into the last paragraph, it says, we became silent and stood watching for a time side by side, deriving, I fancy, a certain comfort in one another's company. Deriving means kind of receiving or getting. So if we think about this sentence, because again it's quite old-fashioned, it said that they stood side by side watching these aliens, watching these creatures come out of the spacecraft, and it said that they are kind of getting comfort from each other by being stood together. So even though it's such a scary time, the fact that they are stood with each other makes them feel a little bit less nervous or anxious. So that's where the word deriving, it means kind of receiving or getting or creating. And the last word picked out, I shifted my position to a little knoll that gave me the advantage of a yard or more of elevation. A knoll is just like a small hill that the person moved onto. So they moved towards a little knoll, so they went to a hill that was higher up, so they were able to see a little bit better. Okay, and those are the words we picked out. So I'm now just going to clear all those words, because otherwise they will move when I move the page. And then let's have a quick look then. So you've now got just 6 questions, okay, for you to work through. So we've pretty much answered that first one based on the explanation. It's one of the words I picked out. But all I do want to look at in particular is the last question. How does this extract show that the spacecraft crash landing is an unusual event? Mention 3 things from the text. So it's worth 3 marks. Can you find 3 different pieces of evidence that show this is unusual? My biggest advice to you is find the way that the person was behaving. Okay, so look for examples where the person is shocked or surprised, or kind of uncertain of what to do or what is going to happen. Can you find 3 examples of that? Because that is what they are looking for. Okay, if you do have any other questions, please message us on Google Classroom and we will help as soon as we see them. Okay guys, thank you.